Well, good morning and welcome to the Atlantic Herring Management Board webinar. I'm Cherie Patterson, the chairperson, and I'd like to call the meeting to order at this point. I hope everybody is doing well and hanging in there. We won't be conducting a roll call as Tony has already essentially accounted for people to be on the board and whether we have a quorum or not, so we will not be conducting that roll call process. So I would like to move forward with the board's consent to approve the agenda. Are there any objections or edits to approving the agenda from the board members? If so, please raise your hand. Tony?
I don't hands raised. One hand there.
Whose hand is raised?
David Merrimont.
David, go
in
ahead.
error. Yeah, in error. Never mind.
Okay, thank you. So, seeing no hands raised, then the agenda is approved. I'd like to move forward with approving the proceedings from the August 2020 meeting. So is there any edits or changes to the proceedings? If so, please raise your hand.
There are no hands raised.
Okay, so the proceedings are approved by consent. Is there any public comment?
I don't see any hands raised, Cherie.
Okay, thank you. So let's move forward with the 2021 Fisheries Specifications. We will be looking at setting the next quota period for Area 1A for next year. That will be our final action for this, and we will be getting an update on the Fisheries Specifications from Max. Go ahead, Max.
Thank you, Cherie. Give me a second to get my presentation up on the screen. I think I'd figure this out by now. Hang on one second. There we go. Okay, you should see a presentation up on the screen. Thank you again, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. I have two sets of slides. So the first is just to review the 2021-2023 specs package, and then another set of slides to review the decisions before the board today regarding Area 1A in 2021. So first, for specifications, they were again done through a framework action, Framework 8, which was approved by the council late last month. Press release from the council was included in your briefing materials. And in there are specifications for 2021 to 2023. That framework was submitted to NOAA Fisheries for review, but a final rule has not been issued yet. As far as catch limits, the framework proposes a lower catch limit for Area 1A, the sub-ACL for 2021, 1,391 metric tons, and then for 2022 and 2023 at 1,184 metric tons. So those catch limits were informed by results of the 2020 management track assessment, which the board reviewed last August, and projections from that, as well as recommendations from the council's SSC advisory panel and of course the hearing committee. These catch limits are also informed by the ABC control rule, which is proposed in Amendment 8. And it's a pretty significant decrease relative to 2020, which was already a low catch limit than the fishery was used to seeing. Of note, the initial package, the initial projections showed an increase in the ABC for 2023, but the SSC recommended maintaining the 2022 ABC into 2023 due to scientific uncertainty, primarily around the recruitment estimates and the projections. The results of the assessment continue to show low levels of recruitment in recent years. And this recommendation is in line with previous SSC recommendations in the past. A few other key specifications from Framework 8. The management uncertainty buffer was set similarly to how it's been set in the past based on 10-year average of Canadian catches. The border transfer was set at 0 metric tons. So typically the council allocates a small percentage of the ACL for at-sea transfers from US vessels to Canadian vessels, but this activity has not occurred much in recent years. So that was set at 0 metric tons to provide as much opportunity to the fishery. The RSA in 2022 and 2023 was set at 0%. Again, typically there's about a 3% set aside for research. However, it was discussed that at these very low catch limits, 3% isn't really sufficient to support research. So it was in the best interest to hold that set aside for the fishery. However, it was set at 3% for 2021 because research was already awarded this year, and some of that work is expected to wrap up in 2021. So maintaining that opportunity. As far as the carryover, it was set at 5%. Typically we see 10% rollover, and this was sort of viewed as a balance between providing more fishing opportunity for the fishery while also maintaining protection for the resource during these years of a low biomass and low catch limits. And then the last bullet under here is adjustments to the incidental catch limit for herring in areas 2 and 3 to help harvesters fully utilize the mackerel quota. Notice, so that's for areas 2 and 3. These decisions did not impact the catch limits for the incidental possession limits for herring in area 1A. Just letting folks know about the decisions there. And you can see more details about that in your briefing materials. For the decisions around the 2023 specifications were sort of viewed as a placeholder. There is a management track assessment scheduled for 2022. And so it's likely that results of that management track would inform 2023 and forward. So it's likely that those specifications could change. And just as a reminder that the implementation date for this framework is anticipated for January 1st of 2021. So again, this specs package in Framework 8 was approved by the council late last month. It's been passed on to NOAA Fisheries for final review, but a final rule has not been issued yet. Madam Chair, so I thought this would be a good place to stop if there are any questions from the board on Framework 8. I do have another set of slides to review today's decisions for Area 1A in 2021, but if there's any questions on Framework 8, I'm happy to take those now.
Thank you, Max. Board members, do you have any questions for Max? Please raise your hand.
I don't see any hands raised, Sheree.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, Max, go ahead on to your next set of slides then. Thank you.
Sure, great. Okay, so now we're talking about the decision points today. In a typical year at this time, there would be 2 decision points available to the board, a focus for the board. The first would be to approve the specifications as recommended by the council. And then the second one would be to determine the period allocation for the upcoming fishing season, whether it be seasonal, trimesters, or bi-monthly, with some qualifications as to when the quota period, when the periods would close and how underages would be handled. However, similar to last year and I think the year before that as well, at this time, the specifications package has not been formally approved by NOAA. So the board waited for a final rule from NOAA Fisheries before setting specifications for the upcoming year. Of course, the board could set them today as approved by the council, but there would be a general understanding that those numbers could change, and that would certainly have to be addressed later. So in the past, last year and the years before, the board has waited until February once a final rule has been released before setting specs. That aside, the board still needs to set the quota period for next year. And so that is the focus of today's decision. As a reminder, the quota periods are outlined in Amendment 3. The board can consider distributing the Area 1A sub-ACL using bi-monthly periods, using trimesters, or the seasonal quota approach. The board can also decide whether quota from January 1st through May will be allocated to later in the fishing season. And just showing up on the screen what the board decided for 2020. It was a seasonal split with 72.8% of the quota allocated from June through September, and the remainder available from October through December. And here are the quota period options available in Amendment 3, keeping in mind these percentages are fixed. So this is the suite of options available to the board today. There are other days out measures available to control effort in the fishery, which are set later by the states of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, landing days, weekly landing limits, provisions on transfers, things like that. So again, the board for 2020 chose no landings prior to June 1 with 72.8% allocated from June to September and 27.2% of the quota allocated from October to December. I'm sorry, that was June to September and October to December. So just to recap again, the decision point today is really to set the quota periods for 2021, either seasonal, trimester, or bi-monthly. The board could set specs for 2021 today if it so choose, or like in the past, wait until February following final approval from NIMS, which was done in the last few years. So that's all I have Madam Chair, happy to take any questions or, of course, move it to the board for discussion.
Thank you, Max. Could you roll back one more slide so that people can see what we're going to be focusing on for decision points? Thank you. So I'd like to open up to the board any questions in regards to this aspect of Max's presentation.
I don't see any hands yet, Sheree.
Okay. Is there any motion out there to set quota periods for the 2021 Area 1 sub-ACL?
Megan Ware.
Megan, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had submitted a motion to staff, and if they're able to bring that up, and that would be helpful. So my motion is to allocate the 2021 Area 1A sub-ACL seasonally with 72.8% available from June through September and 27.2% allocated from October through December. The fishery will close when 92% of the seasonal period's quota has been projected to be harvested, and underages from June through September shall be rolled into the October through December period.
Thank you, Megan. Is there a second?
I have Ray Kane.
Thank you, Ray. Megan, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. This is the same allocation we've used for this year, so it's just maintaining what we did in 2020 for 2021. And I think with the options that we currently have in Amendment 3, this is probably the best fit for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions towards this motion from the board members?
I see no hands.
Is there any questions or comment from the public?
I don't see any hands, and just as a reminder to raise your hand, you click on the hand button, and I think the red arrow will be pointed down when your hand is raised. I see none.
Thank you, Tony. So to move this motion forward, is there any opposition to this motion?
I see no hands raised.
So motion is approved by consent. Is there any other discussion on waiting for setting any other area specs to the February meeting?
I see no hands.
Okay. So that moves us to the next agenda item, where there has been some concerns in the recent years raised on having commission versus council inconsistencies in developing measures for Atlantic herring. And therefore the council and commission leadership discussed these issues and put together a technical work group to see if there can't be any sort of agreement on defining roles of each of those management bodies, being the commission and the council, by identifying which measures that each would be addressing for managing Atlantic herring. So I will turn over to Tony an update on the coordination discussions in regards to this concern.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm actually going to defer to Bob Beal on this issue.
Go ahead, Bob.
All right, good morning, Cherie, and thank you for the time, and welcome everyone to the 79th annual meeting. It doesn't seem like a normal annual meeting, and doesn't seem like New Jersey where I am, but that's okay. We'll make it through this week, I suppose. Yeah, just to give a bit of an update on to follow on what the chair said. As Cherie noted, there's been ongoing discussions for a number of years about responsibilities and roles and jurisdictional questions between ASMFC and the New England Council involving Atlantic herring, and the leadership group has met a couple times, composed of the chairs, vice chairs, and executive directors, and talked about how to coordinate things better. And a couple meetings, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, the outcome was sort of an agreement to coordinate better, and voting seat was set up on New England Council's committee. And we transitioned from a section to a management board to allow a voting seat for New England Council and the commission's management body. And even with those adjustments to the coordination, there's still some remaining concerns about how different responsibilities are divided up. And as the chair said, a working group was formed. They pulled together a really comprehensive white paper that gave a great background on the sea herring fishery and the history of management actions at the council and commission, and it included a series of suggestions on improved coordination and allocating roles and responsibilities moving forward. So that was a great work product coming out of that group. The leadership group, chairs, vice chairs, and executive directors met again last week, to review the working paper and had an initial discussion. No decisions were made. We agreed to all go home, sort of digest the paper a little bit more, and we'll get back together in a few weeks. We just didn't have sufficient time to review the paper and come up with any concrete recommendations prior to this meeting. So we're kind of all reading the paper and thinking about where we want to go from here and how to better coordinate the issues associated with these different roles and responsibilities. So that's the update. We've had one review of the paper, Madam Chair, and it's a great document, and we just need to figure out what's the best course moving forward to provide the best management and comprehensive management of the sea herring fishery. During our leadership call, there was some conversation about the importance of, there's a number of things that the commission does that are really important. There's obviously a number of things that the council does that are really important to herring management. We kind of need to figure out how to work together and comprehensively manage this species across the jurisdictions and across the differing roles and responsibilities and frankly abilities of each group as well. So that's the update. Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Does the board have any questions, Bob?
I don't see any hands.
Okay, this is going smoothly. Is there any other business?
No hands.
Well, that being said, the meeting is adjourned.